And hello, everyone. I'm back, and I have Miss Silvana today for my interview this afternoon. And just to give you an update on her, she is a shadow work facilitator. She's been helping others find freedom through shadow work over the years. She began her journey from her desire to release emotional pain that she'd been carrying around with her for years due to various traumas. After years of severe depression, self-loathing, suicidal thoughts, she became very involved in the spiritual communities and began seeking ways to, get over her traumas. And this is where she found her love for shadow work. So diving in the depths of her consciousness and illuminating parts of her that she'd kept in the dark, she's been able to start that healing process and continue on and on with that healing process. So, Silvana, how are you today?
I'm good, excited to be here. So thank you so much for inviting me, Dusty. I'm looking forward to sharing my journey and what shadow work has personally done for me because I think that um, this is the key for a lot of our freedom and finding that balance within.
That's awesome. So, how long ago exactly did your journey start? Like, especially with the shadow work part.
For I think it's very off because it's at the beginning I didn't know what was going on, but I will say probably 5 years ago is when life started kind of putting me face to face with my own wounds and traumas and shadows. I wasn't aware that I was embarking on this journey at the moment, but it was a process of discovering. Life began bringing more things to me to a point where I'm like, oh, I think this is taking me some unknown place.
So, can you try to explain to people what exactly is shadow work? I know for myself, the first time I heard it, I was like, I'm not real sure if that's even anywhere I want to go, let alone understand what it was. Of course, now
Yeah.
I know. So, but can you explain exactly what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very misunderstood subject, and it's confusing, and the name is very triggering for a lot of people as well, because we have the light workers and then shadow workers, and it kind of creates
Hmm.
more polarity. So before I go into shadow work, I'd like to explain healing in general. And healing is something that it's also very confusing, and everyone has their own interpretations of it. And what I found for me personally, healing it's simply observing something
Hmm.
and that has been hidden from you, either a trauma, an event, an emotion, a belief system. And as soon as we're able to observe it and bring awareness into it, healing is a process that happens naturally. We naturally, every single human on this planet naturally knows how to heal. The best example of that is when you cut yourself.
Right.
We're not the doers of the healing of the cutting, the body's doing it of its own. So in the same way, in the spiritual process, whenever we have awareness of something, then it
Hmm.
immediately becomes healed. Now it's immediate, it's instantaneous. It does seem to take time because we are in a denser reality where things take longer to kind of show and present themselves in the
Right.
physical material world. And then also, we have these very powerful machines called our minds that take a while to begin deconstructing and disassociating from an old belief and accepting a new one. That's
Hmm.
what takes time. Now, where shadow work plays a part into this is shadow is basically anything that we are not consciously aware of. It could be good, it could be bad. Even those words, good and bad, are still indicating some sort of polarity and dualistic nature, which is how we and our minds are able to observe the world. However, whenever we see something that has been hidden, that process is called shadow work. So,
Gotcha.
on a lame term way, shadow work is simply seeing what has been unseen before.
Aha. So, what is the process of finding those things that had not been seen, that have been kind of hiding and lurking in the dark for us? How do you
Well,
get to that?
I think that people go into this journey because there's something within them that is not comfortable. Either they're
Hmm.
unhappy with their work, personal life, with themselves, with their body, whatever it is, whatever way that life is trying to get attention from you, it's an indication that, hey, there's something here that is misperception. We suffer or we feel uncomfortable whenever we're not seeing reality. The masters, the people that have reached the enlightenment, what we think of as enlightenment, they're simply not suffering. They're just accepting reality. So whenever we begin feeling like there's something in my life, I refuse to accept reality at this moment as it is right now, or I'm uncomfortable with my reality at this moment, that's an indicator that there is something there that has not been seen, that has not been fully brought into the light. So the first step will be to identify whether you are completely comfortable and aware of everything that's going on and accepting of life, then shadow work is not for you. But if there's something there bothering, then yes, it is for you. We don't have to personally do anything. That's the beauty of this, is that whenever you have the intention of, okay, well, there's something that I'm not happy with, or there's something in my life that's not working, and I want to find freedom from this suffering, or I want to find happiness, fulfillment, joy, bliss, whatever it is, that intention is enough to begin unraveling the healing process and the shadow work process. What we need to do is let life do its work. Life is the one that triggers us. Life is the one that brings us those different scenarios that you're like, well, I'm not happy with my life. Let me explore what area of my life is it. Let's say, for example, is your job, right? You're in a job that is not fulfilling. It's not bringing you happiness. Whenever we are able to sit with that reality that life brought us in the present and say, there has to be some belief here that it's not true because I'm suffering in this reality, and you let life trigger you, you might have emotional reactions, or you might have different thoughts about things. The process of shadow work is to truly and fully accept whatever reactions you have without judging them. Observing your reactions to whatever situation is causing you unhappiness or discomfort is shadow work. So in a way, all we have to do is just be attentive, receptive, and aware. There's no doing. There's no, step-by-step process, which the mind loves. We love we love the fact to receive list of saying, step one, write down all your pain. Step two, feel the pain. Step three is heal, which it is, right? It is the case. And there's tools that gives us one by one steps on how to trigger different emotions, but overall it's just a matter of allowing life to do its job with our intention of healing and changing and accepting the reactions that we feel from that stimuli from the outside.
So you would say basically then, let's say I get triggered. I'm at work, and maybe the way somebody talks to me triggers me to just be like, oh my God, I am so sick and tired of people being disrespectful. I'm trying to do a good job here. I'm working, I'm loyal, I'm doing everything. And it just feels like no matter what I do is not good enough. So when that triggers me, I should then just kind of maybe stop and accept the fact that I'm upset and take it in, but then also maybe try to kind of analyze it, like, but why do I feel that that's a personal attack? Would that be in a scenario that you could kind of use as a shadow work in progress?
Yeah, absolutely. We think that there's positive emotions and negative emotions, and that is an illusion of duality. In reality, there's just emotions. The good and bad are just judgments of the mind. So whenever we feel joy, for the experiencer, the observer that is looking at life through us, feeling joy or feeling anger is just feeling. It's feeling something.
Right.
Whether that's good or bad, it's just judgment that the mind makes. So whenever we get met with a situation that triggers us and we feel anger, for example, and frustration, then the first step is to allow yourself to feel the anger without judging it. Meaning without saying like, why are you mad? Or getting angry at your own anger, getting irritated with your emotional response. If you're able to, an exercise that I like to do with clients and even myself, is to separate what's going on from me, right? Instead of saying, oh, I'm angry because this person disrespected me, I say, well, let me pull back, because I know that my true nature is just the observer of all this reality. But I'm still in this reality, so let me observe what's going on. So we pull the observer, and then I say, well, Silvana is really angry right now because this person mistreated her. Anger is a reaction to one of our boundaries being violated.
Right.
And it's an opportunity of reestablishing them. The problem is that when we're angry and we try to establish back our boundaries, it usually comes back like, do not talk to me like that, or
Yeah.
back up.
Or a little cussing session.
Yeah, here and there. And that's where, we have to really analyze the situation and know how logical and how can we do the best at communicating things, and what emotional state do we need to be in. I cannot get anything done in anger. I always have to let myself feel it burn, let my mind just go crazy on the scenarios of like, and then I'm gonna say this, and when they respond with this imaginary response, I'm gonna get them back with this one. And I just let myself go there, because sometimes that's what I need to, like, especially when it's a very big trigger, let it go. But I don't take it personally with myself, meaning that I'm like, woof, Silvana is really going at it this time. She is just letting herself go there. And that little dialogue that you're able to have with yourself, it just helps you get out of the character that we're playing. The character in that moment is triggered and angry. But that's not our nature. We're just observing the emotion, observing the character being triggered and angry. And in that moment, whenever you allow yourself to feel the emotion, then you ask for what you need. So in my case, because I cannot speak rationally when I'm angry, I said, I need space. I need time. I need to walk away and put in that. If for some reason I'm in a situation where I cannot speak because whatever comes out of my mouth, I know it's going to be fire, then I practice silence, practice breathing, and I practice getting closer to that emotion. Anger is a very burning, hot emotion that a lot of times we want to either let it out as a release or escape from it. And I invite everyone listening, whatever emotion it is that gets you the most wrapped up in the story, learning how to get intimate with it frees us from it. When we understand something, then we're able to observe it without judging it, and that gives us freedom. So observing your emotional reaction, and then doing self-inquiry whenever it's time, whenever you have the time. If you can do it right there and then, perfect, because it's fresh. And the self-inquiry comes, well, if I'm feeling an emotion that doesn't feel expansive, that it doesn't feel blissful, it doesn't feel loving, then it's not true, right? And that's the foundation, is that our true nature is good, it's pure, it's innocent. Anything that is outside of those lines of love, it's an illusion, it's not true. But the mind believes it's true. That's why we get emotional reactions from it. And it is very important in the process of doing shadow work to be very, very compassionate with your mind. Don't think that the negative emotions are the enemy, or even your mind is the enemy. Everything's doing its job how it's supposed to. And we just need to go look at the situation from the perspective of a parent. The true I, the observer, is the parent. And it's saying, well, whoa, there's this situation happening. Let's separate the kids. Let's have them breathe, calm down, return to balance. And then we can begin doing self-inquiry with ourselves of, why did I get triggered? Oh, because my boundary got pushed. Well, what boundaries were those? Or is this, is this true? Can I know that it's absolutely true? Did they really violate my boundaries? Or did I perceive that they violated my boundaries because I have this little skeleton in the closet? Now, if somebody hits you in the face, then you can say, is it true they hit me in the face? Oh, yes, it is true. And there's evidence of it. There's a video recording on the security camera. But the suffering doesn't come from that, right? You feel the pain, the body goes through the pain, but then the actual suffering comes, oh, they hit me because they hate me, or because they want to abuse me.
Mhm.
And those stories that the mind gives you based on an incident is what you have to inquire, question them. Is what you're believing absolute true? Can you believe that it's true? And then if you're like, yeah, 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 or I don't know, it's like, well, is this a positive emotion? And if it's a positive emotion, then it's true. But if it's an emotion that's causing suffering, you know it's not true. And it's a very personal process of really learning how to get to the root of it. Um, Trying to seek spiritual wisdom so you can have some sort of your, I call them your own values. What
Right.
are things that you can establish for yourself to go back to, and then measure everything against your own personal values of what is true to you. For some people might be maybe beliefs that come from Christianity, from Islam, from whatever religion they grew up to in. For some other people, it can be beliefs that they know based on their journey. For example, my beliefs is the only truth is love. You know, before it used to be a bigger list, but now my value is only love is real. Anything other than love is not real, and if it's not real, then I'm going to inquire it. I'm going to look at it from with a perspective of understanding and compassion, knowing that all parts of me are doing the best that they can, and ultimately that self-compassion bleeds with others. Something that I like to clarify is that a lot of times we think, at least in my personal journey, I felt that I needed to be compassionate with others first,
Right.
and then I will be able to feel better about myself. And what I found is that I was completely unable to feel compassion for anyone because I didn't have it for myself. So I had to go through a time of, well, screw everyone. Everyone's going to be out there and they're just going to have to deal with their stuff, because right now, my innocence, my wounds, my being Silvana, the character, needs my attention. I need to understand her before I can try to understand anyone. Because ultimately, it is Silvana's projection of reality, what I'm perceiving in others. So
Right.
if someone doesn't know where to start, instead of trying to jump right away into a humanitarian cause or trying to love their mom, even though they hated their mom all their life, I think the first step should always be, well,
Looking in.
let me begin this journey and getting to understand myself and why I am the way that I am, to get to the core beliefs of each thing that we might not um, maybe love about ourselves or have learned to accept about ourselves.
I liked your comment about the fact that, you couldn't have compassion for
Mm-hmm.
another person because you really didn't have compassion for yourself. And I know in the myriads of various things I've read and etc., and just personally, it is hard. It's hard to even love somebody else when you really don't even like yourself. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
how are you supposed to treat them with the utmost respect and just have that open compassion when literally you look at yourself in the mirror and you're just like, mm, I don't like me. I don't like this part of me. I'm stupid. Whatever stupid story you tell yourself when you look at yourself. And it's really hard when you're not taking care of yourself. You're putting yourself down. How are you supposed to show all of that love and compassion to somebody else? And I really like
Yeah.
your point of saying it's kind of like a parent. So your upper self is going, hold on, time out, calm
Mm-hmm.
down. All right, now let's bring the kids back together, so to speak. Let's say their kids were fighting, and okay, let's look over what happened. Everybody's calm now.
Mm-hmm.
You got it out of your system, and now let's look at the situation. Here's the facts. Here's what happened. No, this wasn't right. You're getting both sides of the story in that particular parent child, maybe the kids are fighting type situation. But I like that as an example because that, for me, anyways, gives a nice, clear picture of like, here's me stepping out, going, chill out, go to timeout,
Mm-hmm.
calm down. Now, let's re-look at this. What is not as bad as you thought? You were just having a temper tantrum or whatever the case may be. I really like that. Do you feel like that for those people who are dealing with, a lot of trauma, and maybe they're already going to say, standard counseling or
Mm-hmm.
to the to see their psychologist or whatever. I'm not talking about somebody way off and, that has a lot of mental issues, but just, a standard person, maybe
Mhm.
a woman's going to the counseling because there's problems in their marriage or etc. Do you feel like that the shadow work could work really well in conjunction, or is this something that really you probably wouldn't even need counseling? If you could get your shadow work done, you probably wouldn't even need the counseling. How do you feel about that kind of, if those work together?
I have a lot of clients that have a psychologist working with them, and then they also work with me, because if you look at the psychologists, they have been trained to understand how the mind operates. They have the
Hmm.
scientific background behind that. They have tools and techniques that can really help you um, work on those little things the mind kind of gets stuck on.
Right.
Shadow work, it's about finding the core wounds, finding the belief, finding the emotional imprint that caused you to develop a belief. And whenever we find that emotional imprint, that again, it's tricky to say we find because we don't do anything. Life does it for us. So whenever the
Right.
emotional imprint gets triggered and poked, and you feel something, shadow work gives you the tools and the understanding to know exactly what's happening. So the mind doesn't begin making stories that, oh, I'm going crazy. I'm losing it. Oh no, I'm
Right.
gonna end up in a loony house, or whatever the mind tells you. It just allows you to understand the process, which gives you a
Hmm.
little bit of peace of mind, and it gives you tools to really begin digging deeper. And I think that for a lot of people, that it's useful to go through those experiences of shadow work, and then maybe talk them through with a psychologist. Um, in my personal journey, I started with like psychologists, psychiatrists, medicine like antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. And because of that, and the experience that I have with that, I kind of went like, never again. And it was like
Right.
a
Yeah.
visceral response of like, no, that's not for me. So I did all of my work through shadow work, through energy healers, through shamans. I went deep into the spiritual path. And I think I'm in a point now where um, if I have a very stressful situation and I'm kind of struggling with my own reactions because of it, I wouldn't mind seeking that psychological help, just because it helps me speak it out and put my things
Right.
out there, and be able to see them. And that's the benefit I get from it. But I think that if you're already working with someone and you just incorporate shadow work, which is just the understanding of what's going on emotionally within you whenever you're interacting with life, then it
Hmm.
might be a very good resource for a lot of people.
That's awesome. In your experience with your clients, I know everybody's so individual, but as they're working out all these demons, so to speak, or trying to figure out like these core
Hmm.
issues, do you notice a common theme or issue that kind of comes up with people as a whole? I mean, I know everybody's individualized, but
Yeah.
do you see like common situations?
Yes, I do. And I work only with women. I didn't make it that way by design. For some reason, I just attract women as clients, and I love it because that's where my heart is. And what I've noticed is that there are there are small beliefs that we all have that are very different from one another,
Hmm.
but there is a few core foundational beliefs that we have about unworthiness, a lot of beliefs on how a woman should be or shouldn't be, all the
Hmm.
shoulds and should nots, a lot of beliefs that come from religious upbringing of what's right and what's wrong. And I would say on a foundational level, the common theme is like, this is who I'm allowed to be. And this is who I am. And I don't like who I am because it doesn't fit the box of who I am allowed to be. Breaking that wall. That's how you find freedom. That's your healing. It's to know that you're not supposed to be anything. You are supposed to be the way that you are. And if that means that there is, these components of maybe somebody who's very quiet, right?
Right.
Or shy, and they get told like, oh, you should be outgoing. And it's like, but I'm not. I'm quiet and I'm shy. Why do you want me to be outgoing? Why do you want me to be fully expressive all the time if that's not my nature?
Mm-hmm.
So getting past that program of I should be this, yet I am this, that inner conflict is at the core of everything that we experience in shadow work and in healing as well. It's like a lack of acceptance of the reality that which you are. We're all trying to go on the self-improvement road of like, oh, I wish I was like this and I wish I was like that. And for example, I struggled for many years with being disorganized. Like it did not matter how many books about how to organize your life I read. I just could not. It will last 1 week and then an atomic bomb will go off and my life will be a mess again.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that was very judged. Like growing up, I grew up in Catholic school with a very strict mother and all these rules where it was like, oh, you're worthless if you don't do what you're supposed to do. Like if your handwriting is not perfect, the nuns will like rip the homework and be like, do it again. And so that created this idea that if I wasn't what I was told I was supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
then I needed to improve it. And what I realized is that I got tired of that like constant seeking. I'm like, well, you know what? I'm that messy person. And that's just the way it is. Right. And I accepted that. And I stopped suffering. Whenever I'll see the disorder, I'm like, oh, this feels a little, I don't feel good here, but that's just the way I am. And I let go of that. And I kind of began working more on my inner wounds and the beliefs I had about myself. And Dusty, I kid you not, out of nowhere, one day I found myself like folding my clothes instead of putting them on the chair and cleaning up my dishes right after I was done eating. It wasn't anything that I did. All of a sudden, it just happened to me. Order happened to me to a point where if I have, I don't know, an event on a Saturday night, I have friends and everything's messy, I'm able to go to bed and be like, that will get cleaned up when it gets cleaned up. Because
Right.
I know whenever my body's rested, I naturally do those things without it having to do, without the effort. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something that brings me joy because I know the result is a clean environment. So that little thing just give me this clue of like, oh, maybe what I think I have to fix is not something that I have to fix, is the symptom of something deeper. And I
Gotcha.
began noticing this with every area of life. And I see it with clients too, whenever they tell me like, oh my God, this thing just magically got fixed because we fixed our corrected belief that was a misperception that was in place on how they felt about themselves.
And yeah, that makes a huge difference. If you can get those beliefs straight, then things tend to fall right into place. So
Yeah. So you
that's
get
awesome.
something at the root and then it just, bloop, it fixes everything.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
So, would you recommend that if somebody wanted to start, I mean, obviously they could contact you for shadow work, especially if you're a female, but uh, for those who, for whatever reason, maybe they just want to read up on it, maybe attempt, how would you recommend people just getting started with that? Something simple. Cause I know I'm a book person or go to
Mhm.
a website person or watch a video person and then go from there.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes it's easier if they have something they can just read and reference quickly to just kind of start the process. Obviously having a facilitator probably makes it a lot easier to kind of like stop, think about this. I know you and I have had a few sessions, and I can promise you a facilitator makes a huge difference because as you're talking, they're like, hold up. And they're going to tell you to stop. Let's think about this. And then you go, oh,
Mhm.
oh, I never, and then it all starts clicking. So
Yeah.
yeah, but not everybody has the time or the fortitude to
Resources.
necessarily
Yeah.
resources to do that. So what would you recommend somebody do to maybe start the process on their own if they had to or wanted to?
Absolutely. So let's start with books. There is a book that's called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers
Mm-hmm.
by Debbie. Uh, we'll get back at that one. We'll see if it comes back. But yes, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers. That's a great book on shadow work. it kind of gives you very mundane examples that allow you to dive deeper into that. Um, Also, I think Teal Swan has a library of information about shadow work. Um, and then if you kind of understand what it is and you're ready to know that, okay, shadow work is simply going into my own personal dungeon and just finding what beliefs are there that are not true, and you know that that's shadow work and there's no more need, no more desire to understand more, then you can go into Byron Katie's work. So Byron Katie developed this. She has a book called Loving What Is, and in this book, she has something called the work, and the work gives you 4 questions, and you're supposed to use it every time that you have a thought, a belief,
Hmm.
or a conflict with someone that doesn't feel expansive, makes you suffer, makes you angry, it's not in alignment with who you are. Then she has a process and free worksheets on her website. I think it's called thework.com, or yeah, thework.com. And
Thework.com.
you can download these worksheets, and then basically, let's say that my husband may be mad. Why? Because he didn't take out the trash. And then she'll ask you, okay, so what is it that you wanted him to do? Well, I would like my husband to take out the trash without me having to ask him. And then she goes through a process of doing self-inquiry with, is this belief, is this thought true? You're like,
Right.
yeah. And why is he causing suffering? Well, because he doesn't love me, or he doesn't help me because he's not taking the trash out. So you identify the thought that is making you suffer, which is, he doesn't love me, or he doesn't want to help me. And then you begin questioning, is this true? Is it absolutely true? Who
Right.
would you be without the thought? Who would you be without with the thought? And then you can begin differentiating, and that process helps you see that all suffering is a story that the mind created, because reality is always good. We
Well,
perceive it as bad,
yeah, we
but
do perceive
reality is
it.
good. Yeah.
And I know for like one of the biggest, you know, mind blows, if you will, is I know a lot of times we spend a lot of time thinking about, oh my gosh, they're mad at me, or they're talking about me, or, I upset somebody, blah, blah, blah. Or you're worried what everybody's impression of you, of what they're thinking about you. I
Yeah.
know I have. And then you come to realize that they haven't even spent 10 seconds thinking about you. They've got their own issues. They don't got
Yeah.
time to be worried about whether or not your socks matched, or, if you said something kind of off in a meeting, they might have noticed it at that moment, but they're not per se going and ruminating on it later. You're the one ruminating on it. That they've
Yeah.
done forgotten it. They're busy doing something else. It's just like when you're sending out information, maybe, like, say me trying to reach out to you for an interview, but let's say I reached out to like 5 other people. Oh, they hate me. Oh, they don't want to talk to me. No, they're probably just super busy. Maybe they
Mhm.
looked at it and thought, I'll get back with her. And they got busy and just never bothered to answer that particular message or
Mhm.
email or phone call or whatever. It has nothing to do with you. They don't like you. It's more like they got their own life going on. So,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it's very easy to get
Yeah.
wrapped up in thinking everybody's worried about you when it's really, that's your own story you're
It's
telling
in
yourself.
mine. And it's something here that is extremely important for all of us to remember, because this is something that we just have to remember, is that and I know it sounds cliche, we create our own reality.
Hmm.
Meaning that the way that I perceive you is the way that I perceive myself. For example, if I see this person, right, and let's say I'm in line at the supermarket and she gets in front of me and I go, that B, like, how dare she? She's like
Right.
skipping in line, and how, like, she's so rude, right? And then my mind is going off all of those judgments. Oh, that bitch, she's so rude. How dare she? Those are things that I deep down believe about myself still. And whenever I find myself still making judgments like that, I'm like, ooh, juicy opportunity to find even more things that I can bring light into. That's shadow work, right? There's something in the shadow that you're projecting into another person. And then there it is. It's like, oh, I just said that this person was XYZ. Where Where am I not accepting those sides of me? Where am I judging myself for maybe skipping in line? Because I've done it. There has been times that I've been in such a rush, running to the hospital. There is an emergency, something's going on, and I'm like, I'll fight with her if she tells me something. Like that's the attitude, like I'll
Yeah.
tell her, like, leave me alone. I'm in a rush. I'm going through some shit. Like, and it doesn't happen. I just see that, and I can, God knows what she's thinking on her own mind of like, why did she do that? Right. So those are the moments where we get to really look at the big pictures, like, oh, I'm projecting that onto her because there has been occasions where I have not accepted that in myself. So because everything that I perceive in the world, it has to do with me. Everything that you perceive in the world has to do
Mhm.
with you. So if you tell me right now, like, Silvana, you talk way too much, I'm like, yeah, of course I do. I can definitely see myself that I've been told that all my life, but I'm not in conflict with that anymore. So
I'm
it
cool
feels
with it.
good. Yeah. So for me, it's like, yeah, I do. It's fine. But if you say, like, you talk way too much, then the opportunity there is to say, well, do I talk way too much? And do I judge myself for doing that? Do I perceive that as being bad?
Or
So
maybe you feel like you talk too much, but maybe I have the opposite problem and I don't feel like I talk enough, or maybe I
yes,
want to, but I
exactly.
can't for some reason. So then I'm going to judge you
Exactly.
being
See, and
talkative.
it means different things to different people. That's why there's no rule in this. There's no author, there's no facilitator, there's no one out there that can tell you these are your shadows and this is how you heal them, because this is a deeply intimate process.
Hmm.
We are so unique, and it is in that uniqueness that the creator gets to experience itself. That's why there's no two identical beings.
Right.
Even identical twins with the
No,
same
they're not.
lives, same experiences, they're very different.
They're
They're
very different.
different, like, very different expressions of the divine. And our goal, I guess, in this life is to ask the question, well, who am I? Who am I? Who is this character? Who's Silvana? What is she gonna be like? What is she gonna do? I don't know what I'm gonna do in an hour. I do have a calendar that tells me what I'm gonna be doing, but do I know what I'm gonna say or how I'm gonna respond? It's a
No.
mystery to me as well.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Perfect. Now you got me. I'm like, okay. What else do we? You hit everything on them. I like it very much. So, well, I don't want to take too much more of your time. You've done a great job explaining shadow work, and perfect. Now you have your own website, and it's. Let me see if I can get it to show across the board.
Yep, it's
Um,
right there.
right there. How do you pronounce your last name again? Because I know I mess it up every time.
Isasa.
Isasa.
Yes,
All right.
Silvana Isasa.
All right. Well, you can visit her website for more information in regards to, what she has to offer as far as for clients and stuff. And of course, her Instagram's on there as well, at Silvana Isasa. Um, so if you guys want to follow her, is there any other last little comments or additional things you want to add in regards to
Yes,
what we've talked
actually,
about?
I would like to make an invitation, because it is very easy for all of us to get caught up in, like, the mechanics of what is this and healing and all of that. And something that I've sensed in my journey is that a lot of times when I'm doing this work, I forget the basics. And the basics is the foundation, the core, and the core is love. That is our true nature. And whenever we begin a process of shadow work and things get hard and difficult and life begins catalyzing us from every possible direction,
Mm-hmm.
you can always go back to love and devotion. If you don't believe in God or the universe, or your traumas involve kind of that relationship to the divine, devotion to yourself, devotion to your heart, or devotion to what you consider to be divine, to nature, those practices of ritualistically saying, like, I am one with creation, I am love, love is my nature, going back and bringing those reminders are going to be huge helpers in the process of shadow work, because that is
Yes.
the reason why we're doing all of this, is to go back to that understanding of a true nature that we are love, experiencing, and understanding itself.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, that's perfect. Well, everyone, we're going to wrap up here. I don't want to take up too much more of her time. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and very, very thankful for clearing up the shadow work stuff, because I know I've had quite a few friends asking about it, and hopefully this will help with the situation that they were
Oh,
asking,
thank
or
you,
the
Dusty.
reason. So y'all, thank you for joining in and watching us tonight, and thank you, Silvana, for your time. Y'all have a great night. We'll see you later. Thank you.